Picture this. You're about to board a long-haul flight on a budget airline. The ticket was dirt cheap. You brace yourself for a cramped old plane. After all, low-cost carriers aren't known for luxury. But instead, you step onto a brand-new Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Ambient mood lighting glows from the ceiling and huge windows span the cabin. This is Scoot, a low-cost airline doing things differently. Scoot's approach was almost unthinkable at the time. Most budget airlines stick to short routes and small planes. Scoot gambled on the opposite, a fleet built around a big state-of-the-art jetliner, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. It was a bold, expensive bet that many thought would never work. So why did Scoot make such a risky bet? And how did it pay off? This is the story of how one plane helped turn a scrappy low-cost upstart into a surprising winner in the airline industry. To understand Scoot's gamble, we first need to look at the typical low-cost carrier playbook. For decades, budget airlines around the world have relied on a simple formula: short flights, quick turnarounds, and one type of small plane flown over and over. This model was pioneered by airlines like Southwest in the US and Ryanair in Europe. Low-cost carriers, LCCs, usually stick to single-aisle aircraft like the Boeing 737 or Airbus A320. These are the workhorses of short-haul flying. They carry around 150 to 200 passengers, have only one aisle, and can land at smaller airports. By using just one plane model, airlines save on training and maintenance. By flying short routes, they can do multiple trips a day with each plane. Every minute an airplane sits on the ground loses money, making quick 30-minute turnarounds key. This model cuts costs to the bone. Budget airlines also save money by offering no-frills service, no free meals, no assigned seating, unless you pay, and sometimes even no reclining seats or seatback screens. Everything is optimized for efficiency and low price. It's how carriers like AirAsia, EasyJet, and Spirit offer unbelievably low fares. The airline profits through volume, packing in many flights daily and charging extra for add-ons like baggage or snacks. But this formula breaks down on longer routes. Traditionally, low-cost carriers avoided long-haul flights. Flying over 6 or 7 hours introduces new challenges. Passengers expect more comfort if stuck in a seat overnight. Crews require rest, meaning extra staffing. And an aircraft can only make one long round trip daily, reducing utilization. For many years, the idea of a successful long-haul budget airline seemed like a fantasy. A few tried and failed. In the 1970s, Sir Freddie Laker's SkyTrain offered cheap transatlantic flights, but went bust. In the 2000s, carriers like Oasis Hong Kong and Zoom Airlines attempted low-cost long-haul with older jumbo and wide-body jets respectively, eventually collapsing. The consensus was that low-cost didn't mesh with long-distance. The economics wouldn't work. Against this backdrop, Scoot took a different path. Established in 2011 and launching in June 2012, Scoot is the low-cost arm of Singapore Airlines, SIA. From day one, Scoot's mission was to fly longer routes from Singapore, routes beyond the range of typical narrow-body jets. SIA is a premier luxury carrier, consistently ranked among the world's best. But by the 2010s, SIA faced intense competition from Middle Eastern airlines and regional budget carriers. Rather than cheapening its own brand, SIA created Scoot to capture the growing budget travel market. Scoot had SIA's backing, but built its own identity as a fun, cheeky LCC, evident in its bright yellow paint and casual "get outta here" slogan. Instead of following the playbook of small planes, Scoot went big. Scoot acquired used Boeing 777-200 wide-body jets from SIA. Much larger than a 737, these twin-aisle planes had over 300 seats and were designed for long-haul flights. Scoot stripped them to an all-economy configuration with just a few premium seats at the front, allowing them to immediately start medium-haul routes to Sydney and Taipei. Operating wide bodies was a bold move for a new LCC. Scoot needed to fill over 300 seats per flight to break even. And older 777s are gas guzzlers compared to newer jets. It wasn't a sustainable long-term solution, but it proved the initial concept. There was demand for budget options on longer routes. Behind the scenes, Scoot had a master plan, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Shortly after launching in 2012, Scoot took over an unheard-of order for 20 Boeing 787s, a fledgling low-cost airline acquiring a fleet of cutting-edge wide-body aircraft by having its parent company, Singapore Airlines, transfer its existing 2006 Dreamliner order to them. The 787 had entered service just a year prior. Many airlines were cautious due to early technical glitches, but Scoot was all in. To make long-haul low-cost work, executives knew they needed a game-changer. The Boeing 787 was lighter, built largely from carbon fiber composites instead of metal, and featured new engines that sipped fuel sparingly. It was designed for long, thin routes, distant flights lacking the demand to fill a giant 500-seat jet. In other words, perfect for a niche player like Scoot carving out new routes. By 2015, Scoot's first Dreamliners arrived. The airline retired its last 777 that year, becoming the world's first all-787 Dreamliner operator. It was a remarkable transformation within just a few years. Scoot now had a uniform fleet of advanced wide-body jets, taking a totally different path than nearly every other LCC. Scoot's bet on the 787 Dreamliner was a high-stakes gamble. Each Dreamliner costs well over $100 million at list prices. For context, a smaller Boeing 737 or Airbus A320 costs maybe $50 to $80 million, and many budget carriers lease used ones for far less. Scoot essentially bet the house on one plane type. The primary driver behind this decision was unmatched fuel efficiency. Jet fuel is often an airline's #1 cost. Scoot's then CEO, Campbell Wilson, noted fuel made up about 50% of Scoot's operating costs. The Dreamliner promised a dramatic cut in fuel burn. Boeing advertised that the 787 used 20% less fuel per seat than the older 777-200s. 20% might not sound huge, but in aviation, it's colossal. That fuel saving can make an unprofitable route profitable, or allow ticket prices to be lowered while still making money. A 20% fuel reduction meant Scoot could offer even cheaper fares or pocket savings to improve their bottom line. This was vital because LCCs compete on razor-thin margins. By mid-2015, as Scoot transitioned to an all-787 fleet, fuel savings kicked in. The airline announced it would pass these savings to customers, letting Scoot undercut competitors while still covering costs. The aircraft also allowed for more seats, which meant more revenue. Scoot configured its 787s in a high-density layout to maximize passengers and ticket revenue. The 7878 fit around 335 seats, while the 7879 carried 375 seats in Scoot's configuration. By comparison, a full-service airline might put only 250 seats on a 787-9 to make room for spacious premium cabins. Scoot went for an all-economy layout except a small premium cabin, squeezing in as many budget travelers as practical. Having more seats matters because it lowers the cost per seat. If you fill them, your cost per passenger goes down. With the Dreamliner's fuel efficiency plus high seat count, Scoot achieved a rock-bottom cost per available seat kilometer, CASK, a key metric of aviation efficiency. A lower CASK meant Scoot could sustain low fares and still make a profit. Of course, selling those hundreds of tickets per flight was the challenge, but Scoot had tricks for that too. Furthermore, the 787 offered a longer range, which opened up entirely new routes. The 787 brought big jet range to a mid-size plane. For Scoot, this opened up entirely new possibilities. The Dreamliner could fly over 10,000 kilometers, enough to connect Singapore to Europe, deep into North Asia, or even Honolulu. In the years following its 787 rollout, Scoot indeed began stretching its wings. In 2017, Scoot started flying from Singapore to Athens, Greece, an over 10-hour flight that was one of the longest operated by an LCC at the time. A year later, Scoot added Berlin. These ultra-long routes would have been impossible with a narrow body and prohibitively expensive with an older wide body. By entering such markets, Scoot tapped into completely new demand. Previously, budget-conscious travelers in Southeast Asia had no cheap non-stop options to Europe. They'd have to fly a full-service airline or connect via Middle East hubs. Scoot came in offering non-stop flights at a fraction of the usual price. Not everyone wants to fly 12 hours without free meals, but a sizable segment of travelers, like backpackers and students, will gladly trade frills for savings. A key part of Scoot's economic reasoning was the inclusion of a premium cabin, allowing them to focus on upselling Scoot Plus. Most low-cost carriers are all economy, but Scoot offered Scoot Plus. These were essentially premium economy seats at the front of the plane. On the 787, Scoot Plus typically had 21 to 35 seats with wider plush seating, extra legroom, and more recline. Scoot Plus passengers paid extra for these perks and got additional baggage allowance, meals, and priority boarding included. This is significant because those upsell seats generate disproportionately more revenue. The fare for Scoot Plus might be 2 to 3 times the regular economy fare, yet the cost to the airline isn't 2 to 3 times higher. Scoot Plus allowed Scoot to tap into a higher-end market, small business owners or comfort-seeking travelers, willing to pay more but still less than a business-class ticket on SIA. Upselling these premium seats gave a nice revenue boost that subsidized the rock-bottom fares in the back. One often overlooked benefit of the Dreamliner gamble was the inherently better passenger experience. Budget airlines aren't usually concerned with luxury, but the 787 came with features that made the flying experience more pleasant for everyone, with no extra cost required. The 787 has a cabin altitude and humidity control system that leaves you less dehydrated and jet-lagged. It's pressurized to a lower equivalent altitude and higher humidity, meaning you arrive feeling refreshed. The Dreamliner is also quieter and smoother. Even if you're flying in a packed economy cabin eating instant noodles you brought yourself, the journey is a bit more comfortable. And then there are the big windows. Boeing gave the 787 the largest windows of any airliner, and they're electronically dimmable. When Scoot started flying these planes, passengers were wowed. It gave a sense that even though it's a budget flight, you're on a cutting-edge aircraft. Sure, you paid $200 for this flight to China, but look, you're on a Dreamliner. It was a major selling point. Scoot's branding played into this modern, fun vibe. Flight attendants wore bright polo shirts and cracked jokes. The safety video was cheeky. The message was, "This isn't your typical cramped budget plane. It's a 787 Dreamliner, and we're going to enjoy the ride." Scoot's strategy was unusual, but it wasn't totally alone. Other airlines have attempted long-haul low-cost, each with their own twist. Looking at how Scoot compares to other low-cost carriers, most LCCs still shy away from true long-haul flying. The giants like Southwest, Ryanair, and Indigo stay within short to medium range markets. However, a few notable players ventured further. Take AirAsia X, for example. The long-haul sister of Malaysia's AirAsia started in the mid-2000s using Airbus A330 wide bodies. It connected Kuala Lumpur with Australia, Japan, and even London using acquired Airbus A340s. These older generation jets were not as efficient as a 787. AirAsia X managed some success, but struggled on ultra-long routes when fuel prices spiked, eventually cutting their Europe flights due to the high fuel burn of the A340s. Then there is Jetstar in Australia. Qantas's low-cost subsidiary Jetstar also went long-haul. Like Scoot, it invested in Boeing 787 Dreamliners around 2013. With those, Jetstar operates routes from Australia to Hawaii, Japan, and Southeast Asia. Being under Qantas, Jetstar had strong backing similar to Scoot's relationship with SIA. It proved the model could work in the Australia-Asia market. In Europe, Norwegian Air Shuttle made headlines in the 2010s by launching transatlantic budget flights using 787s. Offering one-way tickets as low as $150, they stimulated a new market of budget travelers. But Norwegian expanded too quickly and racked up debt. Coupled with 787 engine technical issues, the financial strain became too much. By 2020, they shut down all long-haul operations. Other examples include Iceland's WOW Air, which used A330s for low-cost flights between Europe and North America, but collapsed in 2019, while Canada's WestJet tried transatlantic 787 flights with a more measured approach. Compared to these competitors, Scoot has been relatively cautious. Crucially, it had the support of Singapore Airlines. That backing meant access to capital, assistance with aircraft procurement, and feed traffic. SIA could feed passengers to Scoot via Singapore. Scoot also picked its routes carefully, choosing places like Athens and Berlin where SIA didn't operate, ensuring they opened new markets rather than cannibalizing the parent company. Scoot's all-Dreamliner strategy was high stakes indeed. By depending on a single aircraft type for all its long and medium flights, Scoot essentially put all its eggs in one basket. In 2013, while Scoot was awaiting its Dreamliners, all Boeing 787s worldwide were grounded for months due to a battery fire issue. If that problem had persisted, Scoot would have had its growth plans paralyzed. A few years later, some Rolls-Royce engines on 787s had turbine blade durability problems. Scoot did face disruptions. A handful of its Dreamliners had to rotate out of service for fixes around 2018 to 2019. It was a reminder that a tech issue on a single-type fleet can jeopardize the whole operation. Full-service airlines have diverse fleets to fall back on, but Scoot had no such luxury. It was Dreamliner or bust. Another risk was economic. The 787 had higher ownership costs than older planes. It only paid off if the promised fuel savings materialized and if Scoot kept planes full. In the beginning, Scoot had to build its brand. There were reports of light loads, which the airline combated with tactical fare sales. Over time, Scoot became known and improved load factors. By 2019, Scoot was carrying over 10 million passengers annually. Did others follow Scoot's example? In Asia, Air Tokyo, a low-cost subsidiary of Japan Airlines launched in 2020, operates with Boeing 787-8s from Tokyo to Bangkok, Seoul, Honolulu, and Los Angeles. Their model is very stripped down, explicitly taking inspiration from existing long-haul LCCs. Elsewhere, airlines like French Bee and Level have tried the low-cost long-haul idea using Airbus A350s or A330s. In a sense, Scoot was a bit ahead of its time. Today, with rising fuel costs, every airline wants the most efficient planes. Scoot's early move set it up with a young, fuel-efficient fleet, while competitors operated older jets. Then came 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic hit airlines like a sledgehammer. While long-haul travel nearly vanished, Scoot was also heavily exposed regionally. Following its 2017 merger with Tiger Air, it had absorbed a large fleet of Airbus A320s and operated an extensive short-haul network alongside its wide bodies. With global borders closing, Scoot was extremely vulnerable and had to ground almost its entire fleet. Without strong financial support, Scoot could have easily gone bankrupt. Singapore Airlines raised billions in capital and crucially supported Scoot through the downturn. By 2022, travel demand started returning. Leisure travel rebounded strongly, and Scoot gradually brought its 787s back into service. The pandemic was an unprecedented test of the model's resilience. Some peers essentially collapsed, but Scoot, thanks to SIA's lifeline, survived intact. Aviation experts have long debated the viability of the long-haul low-cost business. With Scoot's experience, the verdict is nuanced. It can work, but only under certain conditions. Aircraft technology was a key enabler. Without planes like the 787, A350, or A330neo, the economics would be far tougher. These new jets offer 15 to 25% fuel savings. In an industry where a few percentage points make or break profits, that leap is revolutionary. Scoot's 20% per seat fuel burn reduction gave it a fighting chance to make money on a $300 ticket to Australia. Analysts cite fuel burn per seat as a critical metric. Scoot's 787-9 with 375 seats burns less fuel per passenger than older jets, keeping the cost drastically lower. Another metric is CASM, cost per available seat mile. Thanks to high-density seating and fuel efficiency, Scoot's CASM was among the lowest in its region, which is essential if you want to consistently offer low fares and survive price wars. One limitation is the lack of premium revenue compared to full-service carriers. Singapore Airlines can charge $5,000 for a business-class seat to cross-subsidize economy tickets. Scoot's Scoot Plus might only be $800. Long-haul LCCs are superb when the economy cabin is full and fuel is reasonable, but they lack the cushion of high-yield passengers to fall back on during a downturn. No gamble is without its risks. Let's balance the praise with the ongoing challenges, starting with thin margins and volume risk. Scoot's model requires high passenger volumes. If a route doesn't attract enough travelers, a 787 can lose a lot of money fast. The reliance on tourism means external events can quickly reduce demand, leaving Scoot flying half-empty planes. Competition and price wars present another constant threat. Once Scoot proved some routes viable, competitors reacted. Jetstar and full-service airlines matched fares to defend their market. Long-haul LCCs can trigger brutal fare wars. If a new competitor with an even lower cost base arrives flying the new single-aisle Airbus A321XLR, Scoot could feel the squeeze. There are also issues regarding service perception. There's a risk that a bad customer experience can turn people off. If someone has a miserable flight because they didn't realize nothing was included, they might vow, never again. LCCs have to battle the narrative that cheap means bad by delivering reliably. Furthermore, relying heavily on one hub, Singapore Changi Airport, exposes Scoot to the fortunes of Singapore as a transit market. They tried a secondary hub via Scoot in Bangkok, but it shut down in 2020. Finally, fleet constraints have proven challenging. Having all 787s is great until you need something smaller. Not every market can support a 335-seat aircraft. While Scoot eventually added narrow-body planes for shorter routes, there was initially a gap in their capabilities. Today, however, they have integrated the Airbus A321neo, which allows them to efficiently operate narrow-body aircraft on medium-haul routes up to 6 hours without being forced to commit a big 787 or abandon the market.